All right, hello everyone. It has arrived, the final day of Daily Cast, the last day of Scoops season. We have made it, we have survived, and we have a couple of bangers to drop to discuss today that all dropped. And we also have a packed to the gills wonderful cast today. So I'm going to have each of them going down this list, introduce themselves, and say a little bit about when they started playing Netrunner and how they engage with the game today. So first up, Hemraa, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, I'm Hemraa or Dan, but yeah, I've been playing since kind of 2014 when I first started, but then took a break, kind of bad flashpoint time, moved to somewhere there wasn't any Netrunner, but now I'm in Oxford in the UK, where there's a really kind of thriving kind of Monday night local scene that yeah, it's kept going. It dropped off during COVID lockdowns, but it's just picked straight up. And yeah, we usually get a good couple of people
Fantastic.
each night. So yeah.
All right, Koga, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Koga. I started playing a kitchen table netrunner very early, but then joined the game a bit more seriously in early 2016 during Mumba time, and just kept playing ever since. So really happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Uh, rgdelato, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello. I'm Ryan rgdelato. I started playing Netrunner in the FFG days around Creation and Control and Honor and Profit. I stopped playing the game around Order and Chaos, took a long break, and came back around Borealis. Stuff you might know me from these days is I was a member of the Startup Balance Panel. I'm currently playing in the Startup CO. I made it to the top cut. And you may also recognize me from yesterday. I got to spoil a card. That was super cool.
Yeah, that was a fun scoop. Next up, Marbles, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hey, I'm Marble. I started playing that back in about 2014, and I stopped around Order and Chaos time, and started again a couple of years ago. I'm somewhat active in my local meta, but I mainly play online. Yeah, and I'm getting a bit more into the competitive scene this time around.
Fantastic. And then Dave C, could you introduce yourself to the chat?
Hiya, long time listener, first time caller. I'm Dave. I dipped my toe into the game a little under 3 years ago, but only started paying attention to it a little while later and made the switch from startup to standard when the last set dropped. Jessica and I stream most Thursdays, alternating Netrunner and Arkham. So that's helping me to get a bit more engaged with it.
Fantastic. All right, so we always do cards in set order, not theme order. So there's going to be some jumble of different things from different sources today, but we had a couple of great different sources of scoops, including an article from NSG about how the artists, in particular Brazilian artists, worked on the set, and then this card I think is actually from the GLC minority members scoops, but
Yeah, the
if so,
community scoops.
thank you, the community scoops. Yep. So this is Boy Tata. Boy, oh boy, I really wish the pronunciation guide was out so I could feel a little more comfortable, but oh well. This is a 3-cost 1 MU program icebreaker killer. If you trashed any of your installed cards this turn, paid abilities on this program cost 1 less to use. And this interface 2 credits, break up to 2 sentry subroutines, 3 credits plus 3 strength, and a base strength of 1. So Dave, I might do we have two? Oh no, Dan, I might start with you on your take on this card.
Yeah, see, I mean, base numbers are pretty nightmare. I think figuring out ways to consistently trash things. I mean, I naturally veer towards Shaper, so an Aesop's deck, which seems to be getting a bit more support. But yeah, tricky numbers to work around.
Yeah, it's worth shouting out that this is I think just a fantastic piece of art by Kat Chen. I think just a wonderful little piece that's like got great net space and great like a net space and real world kind of blend energy. But Koga, can I get your thoughts on this card?
Right, so I agree. The numbers initially are look kind of wonky, and you definitely need some support for it. Plays competitively. The elephant in the room with this card is like mulch, as I'm sure nobody's surprised about it. Mulch decks have a lot of trash abilities. A lot of the times you can pop your fermenter. Does it actually? It doesn't work with Lago, right? Because it has to be installed. But every simul chip trigger is going to lower the required credits to use the program anyway. So, and it does get close to revolver numbers. So it should have kind of the same breakpoints. But honestly, I can't wait for some people to jank with dedicated processor just to break Anansi for 3 credits. That's gonna be hype.
Give me a second. That's a harder pull, but yeah, you're right. So it's 2 to get it to 4, and then it's still a little bit. I guess if you also have a trash ability, right, then you can break it for 4 credits. I guess because you're only breaking 2 subroutines. But
pay 1 to boost by 4 to get to 5 for Anansi, right? Because I think the breaker gets the ability itself, correct? So it should work that way.
Oh, you're right. Okay, it's not. Yeah. Okay, so it becomes +1 for 4 strength, and then wow, that's an interesting combination. That was not what I would have thought out. That's quite cool. Let's see, Ryan. I might have. We'll just go down the list quickly. Ryan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on our new Stakey boy.
So one thing I'll say is that there has been very little startup chat in these streams, and startups getting a huge shakeup. So environmental testing is rotating out, things like that, and so I'll be interested to see if a new Shaper econ package does lean on Aesops, leans on Coalescence, and if you are trashing things every turn, this breaks. This breaks Ansel for cheaper than Carmen does, provided that you've hit the thing that it does. So it'll be interesting to see if this gets play in Shaper.
Yeah, it's a really good shout. I also think like another card that makes me think about Anarch. You could leave a liberated accounts around with 4 credits on it, and then like click it, and that triggers the boy Tata as well.
Yeah, same with Fermenter.
Yep.
As mentioned earlier, yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, to some extent, I don't want to prolong a breaker too much, but Marbles and Dave, I want to make sure both of you have a chance if you have anything else you want to add on this. But
it feels a lot like a kind of almost like an Anarch revolver, because you're only going to have so many times you can use this really efficiently before it becomes just horrible to use. So it's got that kind of limited availability feeling to it. I do think it's a build around, but I think it's a very, very fun card.
Yeah, it does feel like somebody's trying to make Aesops happen, and I'm here for that. Very supportive. The other tree the other card that popped up into my head was World Tree. Like if you're playing a World Tree deck, you probably have trashed a card. You're trashing a card every turn, but the timing doesn't really work, does it? Because you trash after a run is successful with World Tree.
Yeah, it's true. Oh, actually, yeah, no, that's definitely the case. I was like,
is
oh,
that
another
right?
Yeah, because World Tree is go. So like there is, and someone was asking in the chat. Boitata doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be installed when the card gets trashed. But the World Tree synergy is going to be a little bit rough, where you have to first make a run, trash something, and then you can go and use the like enhanced Boitata. So you might need you maybe need an extra click, or you just need to have such an efficient engine that you kind of don't care.
Yeah, I guess it's better in an archetype if you're doing that, where you want to make lots of runs every turn, which might well be the case with some of the later cards.
Yeah. Sad stuff calling out. So many hoops to jump through for a mid return. You'd think it was a Shaper killer. That does seem kind of right. It honestly feels like it might be a Shaper killer, but put in orange for influence reasons, but who knows. But, Anarch has some ways. I think another card that might be interesting to see with it, I don't think it's super likely, but is Wheels. Just gain some clicks, drop a tag, and charge ahead. But next up, we've got a Rosirius crew. It's going to be my best guess at this pronunciation. This is a 2-cost resource connection CD. This is take 1 tag. The ice you are encountering gets -2 strength for the remainder of this encounter. Use this ability only once per turn. Trash 2 credits. Trash the ice you are encountering if its strength is 0 or less. And the flavor text references Seb, and this is a 3 influence card in Anarch. So, Dave, I might go to you first on this one, just to kind of swap up the order a bit.
Sure. Yeah. Obviously Seb is the runner that springs to mind here. It seems like a decent money and tag engine generating card for that. I'm not sure whether there's an obvious home for it outside Seb. I think the discard ability is fun. It's always fun to mess with corpse. If you are manually clearing the tag as well, it's quite costly in actions and credits. But it might be decent if you're not manually clearing tags. And there are, a few 0-cost dice knocking around the game that see a fair amount of play. Endless Euler, Echo, Logjam that we saw yesterday, I think, if you hush it, Thimble Rig. So there's a few bits and pieces where you don't even need to take a tag to be able to trash the ice.
Yeah, for sure. Marbles. I'm sure I have a sense that you might have some thoughts on this card.
I'm very excited about this card. I think it's going to be one of the first ones I build around. The thing I noticed first with it is it works with Leech in a way that Chisel doesn't, because Chisel, if I remember correctly, is on encounter, whereas this says the ice you are encountering. So you can use Leech to lower the strength of the ice you're encountering and kill it. And I ran some numbers today, and I think with all of the cards, all of the Anarch cards that trash ice, and all of the recursion that's currently available, you could, if you were in Magical Christmas Land, trash an entire 49 card deck of just ice by trashing stuff and recurring it and using Simul chips and Katorga breakouting this again. And I think that's a disgusting deck that I really look forward to making and making people miserable with.
Yeah, I mean, I personally love some ice destruction, and I look forward to being rolled by it. We'll see if that hypothetical we can trash 49 pieces of ice let's go deck can get there. Ryan, I might go to get your thoughts on this crew as well.
So a little bit before the stream, we were actually talking about some of the previous most wanted lists, and Parasites is one of the cards that used to be on the NAPD most wanted list. And this compares surprisingly well to Parasite, even without anything to do with tags. So it doesn't take up an MU slot. You can put it down on the table and then just run. And when you run into some ice that you want to trash, you can say like, okay, this is worth spending this ability on, as opposed to needing a clone chip or something like that to hit this at instant speed. So I expect this to see play even outside of Seb.
Yeah, I think that that ability to use the, like, once you have one of this installed, it is like, unlike Parasite, it's basically on every single ice, is like a really profound strength increase for this card. I think that said, like, not being tutorable, because it's generally pretty hard to tutor resources, though I guess more on that in like 2 minutes, I guess, maybe 5. You know, does make this a little bit less instant speed. But
Yeah, but it also, the corp is like, do you really want to res that archer now?
yeah, I don't know. Koga, love to get your take on this card.
So it's interesting how they made Parasite 4.0, and I think this time it's the time it's actually good. 2.0, 3.0 weren't as good, I think. Tripano and Chisel. But so the things you mentioned, that you don't really need this to be instant speed, like an instant speed install, because it threatens every ice at the same time, is really interesting. And like the cool thing about Parasite is that it had support for recursion, and we already have a recursion card that has been spoiled a couple days ago, which is Privileged Access, which also gives us a chance to get this back on the board with just a run on archives. So I'm actually interested. I want to see if people manage to, let's say, break this and make no breakers decks.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really interesting possibility. And like, honestly, I like the idea of getting back into no breakers, or breakers as a secondary game plan as an option. So yeah, it'll be really to see if that ends up manifesting. Dan, I want to make sure that you get a shot on this as well.
Yeah, so there's a few things, kind of that combo of trying to get the strength down we've not mentioned is Devil Charm. I think this is a better combo with Devil Charm than Chisel, which is kind of traditionally the two have gone together, because you can really you can pick and hold it, put both pieces down, hold them in reserve for when you really need it, and maybe even kind of just scare the corp away from rezzing their big ice. And also the other thing is looking at actually the first ability, the tag. One, it's nice to have just take a tag on a stick for Seb decks, like just once a turn whenever you need to. And I think actually the -2 strength works well for things like Amakua, and then like Cleaver, Buzzsaw, fixed strength breakers.
Yeah, I do.
Use from that.
Yeah, even without reducing the strength, just combining with Amakua, it does seem nice, where you can be like, yeah, it's actually more valuable for me to take a tag, install another connection from my hand, paying 2 less, break with Amakua, and I'd rather keep this on the table for now, because, my Amakua will handle your 2 strength ice now, and, why bother clearing, no need to trash yet. I can handle it in other ways. It's definitely an interesting possibility. I guess, is this... I think you all have touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to get, like, is this a Seb only card? Is this a best in Seb card? Or do we think that there's going to be a deck that uses this kind of better than Sebastian? Sebastiao?
I think it's going to be best in Seb, but I can see if you ignore the first ability of the tagging stuff, because the trashing doesn't need to interact with tags, so I can see possibilities there.
I think it's good outside of Seb. I think the unfortunate thing that we say about every Anarch card is probably going to be true. It's probably going to be really good in Hishiko. I could also see a Lu deck. It being really good in a Lu deck where you're doing all other sorts of horrible things to trash corp cards and trashing ice on site in HQ before it even gets installed. You can tell I've got a dream of just trashing every single piece of ice in a corp deck, and I'll see if I can make it happen.
Okay, I was
We
trying to.
believe
I'm
in
just.
you.
I'm looking. I'm like, okay, solidarity badge does trigger off of this of crew trashing, though. If I'm remembering correctly, Audrey does not. Right? It's a card you're accessing. Yeah. So just as a thing to keep an eye out there. And also in the chat, there's been some discussion. Do you need to be encountering an ice to do the take a tag ability? And the ruling is yes, because of good old everyone's favorite rule: no change in game state. If you're not encountering an ice, you have no ice to be reduce its strength, and so there'd be no effective change in game state other than the cost, and so you don't evaluate the cost when evaluating change in game state, which is definitely a rule that everyone loves, but I do think is a rule that allows opt to exist. So who could say if it's bad or good? Anyway, let's move on to the next card in the set. I was just earlier saying that there was no tutors in the for connections, and yet here we are. This is Meeting of the Minds. This is a 4-cost event. It says choose connection or virtual. You may search your stack for one resource with the chosen subtype and reveal it. Add that card to your grip. Reveal any number of cards with the chosen subtype in your grip. Gain 1 credit for each card revealed this way. And this is 3 influence. So, Koga, I might have you go first on this one.
Right,
What stands out to you
so,
first
okay,
about this card?
well, first thing is, of course, Adam. Adam, enjoy us, rejoice. Apparently he's back. So, competitively speaking, this is the first thing that comes to mind. I am somewhat worried about this. For criminal decks, we have seen criminal decks mostly play companions plus twinning, and they can get into a lock state pretty quickly that feels a bit oppressive from the corpse perspective. So having a card that finds precisely those cards might be quite annoying. But we'll see. We'll see. We had hostage in the game a long time ago, but it never really tutored crucial cards, I would
Yeah,
say.
like the best.
Maybe tech traders in Geist was the biggest thing, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say like Geist would sometimes hostage for DJ Fenris so that you could like either be Haley and find Geist or be Geist and find Haley, and that was like the most
Mhm.
powerful I feel like hostage ever was. I guess sometimes you like hostage for a film critic as a one of, but like often it was better to just play a second film critic because it was only one influence pit. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah, we'll see.
we'll
I
see.
hope it doesn't make things too complicated from the corpse perspective. We'll see.
Yeah. Uh, Ryan, I guess what are your thoughts on Meeting of the Minds?
Um, it's cool to see because I wasn't necessarily sure that connections were still going to be part of Criminal's Color Pie after Seb. But yeah, this card is hostage stapled to calling in favors, and I don't actually even remember or know if people remember calling in favors because it's kind of a card that did nothing really at the time.
I think I
Um,
did pull it up in one earlier daily cast this stream, but I'll
oh wow.
stop my interjection there.
Yeah, so it's interesting that searching for connections and having connections in your deck still does get a little bit color pied as blue. Um, but yeah, I don't necessarily know what this looks like outside of Splash and Get and Sub.
Yeah, I guess. And you've been set. You were. Do you feel like this sees any play in startup where like companions don't exist and you have like I guess I'm trying to think what connections you have in criminal and startup at the moment. I feel like there's not very many.
Yeah, not especially. So, I mean, I would have to do a search, but
Hmm.
yeah, twinning is rotating. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure outside of all the Anarch ones.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe this is just a 3 influence tax on Seb.
Yeah, maybe.
And Dave, I'd love to get your take on this card.
I was just muted there. I like it. Yeah, I think I like the sense that Seb's coming to this place where he can just completely fill the board with so many resources that it's not worth it for the corp to go trashing them. It's sort of like an inverse asset spam for a runner, which is kind of cute. I'm not sure, like other people have said, how much wider applicability it has as a card. I do really like the theme on this. I love the piece of fiction we had today. Nice seeing the dial back to Adam. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
And Marbles, love to make sure you got a chance to get in here as well.
So I think my big question with this is how many states are there where I would pay 6 for the twinning right now? And I think that there are quite a few. I think that an early twinning can win a lot of games if you've got the other pieces backing it up, and if you've got good criminal economy. And of course, it won't always be 6. Sometimes you'll have other stuff in your hand that makes it 5 or 4, or, you know, Magical Christmas Land again, you get paid to go and fetch this card. So I think this is going to see a lot of play, and I completely agree with, I think it was Koga who said that, like, it has the opportunity to be a slightly problematic card.
Yeah. I'm also just imagining, like, yeah, after you, like, install the class act or something, like, your hand is just, you know, massive and, like,
Yeah.
oh, I drew, like, Paladin and Amelia and, oh, Meeting of the Minds, twinning GG. Like, I don't know. I think there's some real, I think this is an interesting and potentially slightly dangerous card to print for Criminal, but at the same time, it is 4 cost up front, but I do kind of agree that, hey, 6 to have a second copy of Twinning that's influence free. That's also my copy of Paladin if I found my Twinning already. Like, I don't know.
I do really like the way the second ability means the net cost scales depending on how desperate you are.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And it's also interesting because you always have to pay 4 up front. So even if you have a bunch of stuff in hand, you have to have the 4 first, and then you can get the rebate kind of afterwards. You know, feels almost like a classic like corp thing. Oh yeah, this is the sticker price. Oh, but it's actually after you send in a letter telling us that you want to get the thing. But also, Dan, I want to make sure you get some thoughts in on this card.
Yeah, I think we've had the sensible discussion. I can take this in a much more jankier direction.
I think that's
I've
what
been
this card
playing
is
around.
meant to be for. So it's a very welcome discussion.
Yeah, I've been playing around with As recently, and I think, I mean, with this card, you know, one thing to note is that Sebastian or Seb is a Gmod. So with this card, you might be more consistently be able to DJ Fenris for Seb out of Criminal, and actually go from potentially more for an all-in kind of connection Criminal deck and get that as discount.
Okay, I like it. I think someone also called out it's not from this set, it's from the last set. We do have Debbie as a new connection for criminals from the Automata initiative. And there are like quite a few good connections that you could think about as well. I'm trying to think what some of them might be, like Bachlan maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Asman Putlat.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, you can have this be like your connections and deresing deck or something out of As. I don't know. That does sound like a fun little jank build that I'm sure we will see on the Metropole grid coming soon to a stream near you. I I see Boucher in the chat asking, should you use this to tutor Aesops and As? Because that's also a connection. Could be interesting. But yeah, any final thoughts before we move on to one of the, I think, like art and thematic high points for the set? Actually, is that the next one? Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Gietano. This is a one-cost hardware weapon. When your turn ends, if you made a successful run on HQ, R&D, and Archives this turn, you may add this hardware to your score area as an assassination agenda worth 0 agenda points. Then, if you have 3 assassination agendas in your score area, you win the game. Threat 3, whenever you bypass a piece of ice, you may spend click to install this hardware from your heap. So this is, I would assume, the alternate win condition we've spoken of, that was spoken of in the spoiler article, and I'd love to hear whoever is kind of most interested in taking a take on this first.
Me, please.
All right, Marbles, please.
So I desperately want this to be good. I think it's going to be a huge amount of fun. It has some drawback. Right up front, you've got to find all 3 of them, and you've got to run every central server 3 times on 3 different turns and get it installed. Those are big asks. Finding all 3 of them in your deck, I ran the numbers earlier today to get a 50-50 chance of finding all 3. You need to have pulled 36 out of the 45 cards in your deck. Of course, we are going to be almost always running this out of Criminal, so you're going to have things like the Class Act, and I kind of love it and find it hilarious if this made Blueberry Diesel good as like filtering options, because that immediately halves that number, and drawing 18 cards is a lot more reasonable than drawing 36. I think it's going to be a tough sell to win with this, but it's going to be so cool when you do it. It's going to be so cool when you do it, and I can't wait to try.
Fantastic. Well, Dave, I might go with your thoughts on this next.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, similarly excited to see where this goes. I like that there is a kind of corp counterplay to this. Like there's a rig shooting element, and there's the decision for the runner whether this stays in hand until you have to put it on the board and then try and use it the same turn, or whether it's actually at risk in your hand, depending if you're playing against a deck that's using a lot of damage. So I quite like that. I'm somewhat terrified by the threat 3 text, where you can get it in really quickly, and there's less of a counterplay to it. So hopeful, slightly scared, somewhat thinking that the last card I think NSG printed that said you win the game was Super Deep Borehole, which is sadly a bit of a meme card. I'm still really waiting for somebody to make that one work, because I still love it. But yeah, I think this for me as a card sums up one of the things I feel about this set, which is I feel the design is flying quite close to the wind in terms of like on the edge of broken cards or cards that might turn out to be broken. And I'm really excited by that, and looking forward to seeing which of them are or aren't.
Cool. Well, Ryan, I'd love to get your takes on this, and I'm always kind of curious about like how you evaluate this in startup, which I suspect is the main lens you look at a lot of these cards through.
It is, but one thing I do want to say right off the bat is when I first saw this card, I love the artwork on this card and the theming.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And the immediate thought that I had was like, okay, what I want is I want a playset where every art is different, so I have 3 alt arts that are assassinating each of the 3 heads that that Mercury is trying to assassinate be so cool. Your symbol, your Exodia, you know.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Um,
There was some. I think OP did like a set of like hippos of different states of damage. Maybe if this card proves popular, we can look at doing a couple spins on this card.
I would love that. That would be incredible. Yeah, but in terms of, I do think this might be a tiny bit easier to get it to work in startup, considering that corpse move a little bit slower. There's not quite as much econ, but there's been a lot of new cards that are gonna shake things up. So we're losing a lot of cards. We're losing turbine. We're losing pinhole threading. So it may be a new day for corpse, and it's really hard to evaluate how hard is it going to be to run all three centrals in the new meta.
You're also losing Sable, right? So that's going to make this a little bit
Correct.
harder to pull
Yeah.
off in startup too.
Although we are getting alarm clock,
That's true. Alarm clock is going to
so
help this.
we can get a free HQ run to start us off.
Yeah. And hey, spend click click bypass, and then just spend another click to install Jetno. No, people are saying that's not like all how it's pronounced. Jtingo, Jchinyo, I don't know.
G2 I'm not sure
G2no?
either.
Yeah. And then you just need to like have some feature styles down on HQ or something so you get your clicks back. But you know, Cribbed will find a way to make it work. All right, Dan, I'd love to get your take on this card.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the meta's massively up in the air. So not sure where this all settle. I think as it's been mentioned in other places online that with the threat 3 ability that you could sell this to Aesops and then recur it.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Just alarm clock
There's
Jetno.
something there.
Yeah, maybe in an As deck, we can just be selling this over and over again for 3 credits, bypassing with alarm clock.
Masterwork.
Yeah, drawing from Masterwork. This does sound like some very fun jank. Like, yeah, I could win the game. I just need 3 more credits. I just need 3 more credits in a card. 3 more credits in a card next time, I swear. That sounds.
Yeah. I think the how the corp reacts as you kind of start scoring these, is really interesting to think about, and when does the corp kind of start worrying about them, and how quickly you can, I guess it's how quickly you can get, after the first one comes down and you score it and the corp kind of goes, oh wait, this is the game we're playing now. I think there's some interesting space in how the corps kind of react to that. Do they just try and go faster on their main kind of win con, or how much they have to pull back?
Yeah.
And I guess how much you can, maybe as a runner, you can actually play on that fear and just use 1 or maybe even 2 as a kind of a fake out and say, hey, slow down.
Yeah, that's the ultimate kind of Swiss troll build, is you just include one of these, you install it on the table as soon as you find it, and make the corp really slow down on centrals. Which that's quite something. All right, Koga, I want to get your thoughts before we keep moving on to the next card.
Right, so first thing is, I love the suggestion for the pronunciation in chat, but there is no way I'm not calling this Yantuno. So for the standard format, and jank, there are a few cards I want to highlight with this, because I chatted a bit with Silent Arbiter, and some ideas popped up. So the first is another great quest card from this set, Wizard Chest. So if you really try to build your deck accordingly and only play these 2 hardwares, I think you're guaranteed, if you have a wizard chest down, to get a J-Neo down when you need it. So that's really cool. There is a cute thing probably nobody ever thinks about doing, which is stacking security testings on all 3 centrals because you don't care about the accesses, which is incredibly fun. And the last hypergen card you might think about running at least once, and then you cut it, is exploit. Because if you really, really care about running the 3 centrals and the corp is trying to stop you, right, you can make your life easier by de-resing those eyes again and make the second Yantuno or third Yantuno easier to land.
That's fantastic. Wait, the exploit coming back? I mean, like, obviously, would you rather it be APOC? Yeah. But actually, no, you wouldn't rather it be APOC because that would turn your Jantuno upside down.
Right, yes.
So you actually exploit is better than APOC for this deck, which, chef's kiss. That's pretty fantastic. That's yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm curious. Do people think this is like meant to be like a, or is going to be? Let's not worry about intent. Let's worry about going. Is this card going to be a competitive staple, or is this, do we think, more of like a jank build around?
I personally hope it doesn't become. I mean, it'd be fun if it became competitive. As long as it doesn't become too much. That's
Yeah, so
my
this,
take on it.
if it's like, oh yeah, there's like the guy that always, or the person that always brings their Jatuno deck, and sometimes, once in a while they can like top 4, maybe even win, if this wins like 1 to 2 events a year, that's pretty cool. If this is winning like a bunch of events, maybe it's not super fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think if the game became about this win condition, I'd feel kind of unenthusiastic about it. If it's like you say, if it's something that's a special occasion, it's really fun and exciting. I think it's kind of janky. I think it's a build around.
Yeah. Well,
It does get added to your score area as an agenda. Are there any like data dealer type combos that make sense here?
as much as I wish there were, I'm pretty sure there are 0 runner cards that allow you to forfeit agendas right now. Because we were all desperately hoping for them in the last rotation when there was just a group of corps that were just playing stock exchange. Hengeki stock buyback. And it was just like, please, NSG, give us a... I mean, look, I wasn't going to ask for an artist colony, but like, would have been nice. Would have made it shaper a little bit better. But yeah, no, I think we're completely lacking in ways for the runner to forfeit agendas right now. So maybe, we've seen Tag Me revisited. Maybe we'll see agenda forfeiting revisited in the future. That would be fun.
I quite like the theming on that. You start this campaign of assassination against government officials, and then you decide halfway through that maybe it's not such a great idea.
Yeah. And you're just going to sell the fact that you assassinated someone off to a data dealer and like not worry about the consequences. Yeah, that's a funny little thematic thing. All right, well, we have, I think, one more runner card to a couple more runner cards to discuss, I think. Oh no, one more runner card to discuss. This is Ashen Epilogue. This is a 5-cost event. Shuffle your grip and heap into your stack. Then remove the top 5 cards of your stack from the game. Draw 5 cards. Remove this event from the game. And 2 influence. So this is, I'll just come out and say it. Oops, that's the wrong card. That's, oh goodness. All right. I'll let someone go while I go and pull up Levy real quick. Who would like to go first on Ashen Epilogue?
I can go on this. So yeah, this is a very close near print to Levy AR Lab Access, which used to be like back in the day when we would run max decks, you always ran a one of this because max would burn through their stack really quickly, and then when you get to the bottom of your stack, you play Levy AR Lab and shuffle your discard back in and get to go again. And we're kind of seeing a max type ability in Lago Paranoia Shelter. But the decks that are primarily using those, like mulch style decks, like already have a way of putting cards back into their stack. And they get to choose which cards those are instead of like shuffling the entire discard back in. So I would be really interested to see how much play this sees in the modern day, because this was a force to be reckoned with back in the early Netrunner days.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, I see some people being like, mulch ban when? And it's like, I don't know that this makes the cut in mulch, because just recurring 3 simulchips is way better for that deck than recurring their entire deck in a lot of ways. Which does seem like a significant difference between these two cards, along with like the influence cost of like, do you really want to spend your influence on this? But maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm not sure. I'd be kind of curious to see. I might actually go to Koga next, just on your thoughts on Ashen Epilogue.
So yeah, I agree that mulch kind of probably wants the cards in the bin to mostly stay in the bin, which is pretty interesting. But I am interested, like, how will this impact the economy of runners? I think this has a chance of sort of revitalizing the PPVP event-heavy decks. I'm not sure if there's enough good econ and draw events that cost like enough credits. Like when you have 2, maybe 3 PPVPs on the board, and you just have to play creative commissions over and over, you're not really getting the full value you maybe used to earlier in the like years ago when we were playing like Lucky Find and similar things.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to give a very small interjection of, if you want to see an interesting prepaid style shaper list, I did actually publish one yesterday after doing pretty well with it at a circuit opener. And I suspect Ashen Epilogue might find a home and actually might allow prepaid voice paths to go into the list, because I think people have been sleeping on Joyride a little bit, and I actually think like Ashen Epilogue is the kind of card that helps make Joyride make a little more sense as well. But who knows? I could be very wrong about that, but we'll see.
That's really, really interesting. One other note I want to make about this is that compared to Levy back in the days, there is no same old thing in the game now. Right?
Yeah, that's a huge change for this card.
Yeah, that's like you can play like buffer drive, I guess, but you have to install a 3-cost brick that costs 1 influence for everyone. So if you're not like Anarch, you mostly don't want to play this, I guess. And like the hardware, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that does seem like you're saying like, okay, I'm gonna spend, I'm gonna spend 2 card slots, 3 influence, and probably 8 credits on the idea that I'm gonna go through my deck twice. And at that point, it's like, well, could I spend those 3 influence on 1 bravado and do as well? But I don't know. But yeah, let's see. I think, Dan, we haven't heard from you on this card, right? If I'm remembering, or yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. My thoughts is kind of event based shaper with kind of Anicam. Particularly with the new breaker, shaper breaker that was spoiled yesterday. The decoder and fractor.
Oh, yes. Labas Soul.
Yeah, kind of spark of inspiration maybe out of kit to just have a very light breaker suite with Orca, and then you just fill it with Anicam and events.
Yeah, that does sound like a pretty fun and like different style of shaper than we've seen in quite a bit. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and there's one other kind of much more niche card. Just because I remember kind of playing with Levy, and the problem with Levy was that it was on the NWL, and you couldn't take it with other good cards. That a card that I found wanted to recur your deck was the Nihilist, which is the noise connection, because it gave a choice between the corp self-milling or drawing cards, but if you got to the bottom of your deck, then it just
turned
nothing.
off. Yeah.
It was a difficult card to make work at the best of times.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. Like, oh yeah, we can make our maybe this is how we're gonna make Augustina work. Now we can just install a bunch of viruses and then shuffle the whole deck and hopefully not not RFG too many of them. Then install a bunch of viruses again. All right,
I
and then
wonder if this has got more of a home in Loo mulch rather than post mulch. Like I feel, because that's a smaller deck, you are more likely to run out of it quicker, and particularly if you're leaning on Audrey a lot. I mean, I've not played the most competitive decks of that archetype, but I found that I was running low on cards pretty quickly, and it might be nice to have another go through the deck on it. Someone mentioned in the chat the art on this, which definitely deserves a shout out. Firstly, because it's amazing, but secondly, it's the sort of narrative climax of the whole cycle. The new president is getting sworn in to kill off the initiative, and like the runners are, I guess it's not supposed to depict an actual physical event, but like symbolically they're looking over the chaos at this this shining light of the president signing this stuff in and taking credit for all of the stuff that they did. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think it is kind of interesting that when you pair this theme with this card, it feels very Sisyphean, where it's like, okay, we got this victory, but now we have to start all over again, which is an interesting note to add to your kind of narrative arc. For like,
we did all this stuff. Yeah, we did all this stuff, and the bastards are still back in charge. Hey ho.
Yeah, very much so.
So I think for me, the most important thing about this card is what it does to the corp side of the meta, and not necessarily at the competitive level, although we have occasionally seen decks like the ones I'm about to describe at competitive level, but the kind of decks that just want to deck the runner out. Yeah, that's a very good example. Not ones that necessarily want to kill through net damage on a single turn. Those are very good. You should play those. Those are really nice. Nice people play those. But the kind of decks that just kind of want to wear you out and get rid of all your cards, I think that the very existence of this card in the meta makes those decks less playable and probably improves the play experience for everyone.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting, where sometimes like, oh yeah, card X exists, so this strategy just isn't consistent. Like, I can't ever beat cards that include an Ashen Epilogue in their deck. There's only 2 influence, so maybe I just shouldn't play this kind of grinder style deck. Dave, I'd love to get your thoughts on Ashen Epilogue before we keep moving, because we are just about to hit the hour mark.
Oh, we're good, Jeff. I already interjected myself, so
I'm sorry.
You've had all of mine. No, it's fine. It's
Apologies.
fine. Me jumping out in out of turn. It's cool.
No. I honestly, it's pretty smooth when people jump out of turn most of the time, so it almost makes us go better. But next up, we've got our final. Hey, username equals pants. Yeah, I thought you'd be excited about Levy coming back. We've got Levy at home and Max at home. So get cooking. You better start showing up to local meetups again. We have Valentina Ferreira Carvalho. This is a 2-cost resource connection. Whenever you remove 1 or more tags, gain 1 credit. Threat 3. When you install this resource during your turn, you may remove 1 tag or gain 2 credits. This is no influence, and yeah, it's a neutral card for runners. So everyone gets a little bit of tag removal, I guess. Who has some initial thoughts on this card?
Yeah, I mean, I can jump in. This definitely goes in my my as connection deck, and yeah, probably in Seb decks as well. It's just another kind of econ card for that kind of deck. And I guess maybe even a tech piece if we start to get kind of MBN and kind of R plus decks running everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Could be useful to slot, and it's neutral, influence free. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, this does. I've seen some people compare this to like Citadel Sanctuary, for kind of reducing the cost to taking a tag for the runners, and there's definitely a couple parallels. I think there's some stark differences too, but I could see this becoming like one of the tech cards du jour if you start getting into a meta where tagging is somewhat common, as this just makes like reducing the credit cost of removing a tag by one feels like it's quite substantial, and also coming in online like when you install this, removing a tag and then gaining a credit right after you've been oppoed seems like a very nice tempo play. So yeah, Sprout Ella. From my understanding, when you install Valentina and the effect, the one install trigger happens, I believe her text is, the when you remove one or more tags, text will be active. So it's a nice little option. Koga, I might go to you next here.
Yeah, it's an interesting card. I agree. Like it's mostly probably tech, and someone pointed out in the chat also networking for free. So I imagine this works even from 0 credits, right? Like you play networking, remove the tag, then you gain the credit from Valentina, then you can spend one to add it to the grip. I imagine.
Yeah, that should
So,
work.
but from 0 credits, that sounds pretty nutty. But yeah, it's a I don't know, it's an interesting sort of um like new version of like dealing with max tags, like a huge wave of tags. You don't have misdirection in the game anymore. Uh, but with this, you should pay the same amount of credits, just not save the clicks, which I think is actually sort of fair for both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. That this is as efficient for misdirection, but still lets the corp have lots of tags as a tempo kind of play, which is nice, but not like an economic crippling one as well. All right, I actually, I might just in the interest of keeping time. Does anyone else have things I know not everyone's had a chance to talk about this card. I don't know how much more there's to say, but if you have something, I'd love to hear it as well.
I think
Just that. Oh, sorry.
no.
Just that system update is rotating after the next set, and networking is going to go with it. And I think that this is extremely comparable to networking, especially threat 3 matches the threat 3 on Oppo. So somebody Oppos you, you put this down and clear 3 tags. It's basically networking.
That's a nice shout out. And Danius.
I think people are slightly underrating this card. I think this goes in basically every deck.
You think this is Plaskreet return to some extent?
Yeah, I think just there's going to be tags somewhere in the meta. You might as well have one of these because it crushes Oppo. It absolutely crushes it.
I really like what it does to the R plus deck. Me and Marbles played a R plus deck on stream for Christmas sometime, and literally every person we played against rage quit. And obviously, I apologize once again to everyone for that bad play experience. But one of the reasons that was such a hard deck to play against was that you just ground down the runner economically, or the oppos, and the fact that you still have to spend the time, but you don't have to spend all the money. I think it's a really interesting tweak to that, and hopefully makes that a bit less unpleasant to play against. So yeah, great design here, love it.
Also, small shout that makes this slightly better than networking. You don't go down a hand size because you don't have to keep it in your hand.
Yeah, that's a nice little add-on here as well. All right, well, we have 2 cards left.
I think the thing,
of course.
Talking about the threat install, that you can remove the tag. if you've got one when you install it, works even better in Seb. Like if you're on threat 3 and you tag yourself as Seb, you can immediately install this for no cost and remove the tag that you've just taken. I think that that can provide some amazing tempo.
Yeah, that's actually a
Just
very good.
keep on taking tags.
Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to shout out the interaction with Seb's console as well. I'm not even going to try and butcher the name by saying it, but if you're clearing a tag and you're getting a credit back and you're getting 2 cards once a turn, I hope that makes it an engine that will see some play outside Seb as well, which is really nice.
I'm pulling up amanuensis just for people that want to look up what the console does. But yeah, no, that is a nice little set of interactions, and definitely seems good. Yeah, this does make me think that you probably do have the influence instead to like play a dummy box and just make a lot of your stuff untrashable, and then start clearing tags in a quite tempo positive way. Great, thank you everyone. Thank you all for chiming in. That was a lot of nice little points there. We have Bodo. This was another card from the artist's kind of recap. This is a 6 to res 4 strength barrier AP out of Jinteki. Shockingly. Threat 4, this ice gains +2 strength, and then it has 3 subroutines. Due to net damage, you may trash a card from HQ to end the run. You may trash a card from HQ to end the run. Yeah, as Jamie was saying, this is Wall of Thorns 3.0, I think, because there was one in the Borealis cycle. Oh, I guess this is 4.0 if you include Shiashi as a Wall of Thorns, I guess. So how does Wall of Thorns version X feel to people?
I'll go if no one else wants to. Yeah, like comparing it feels like it's quite a close comparison to Ivic. But I think the biggest thing is that it's got 3 subs, that it kind of splits out that end the run into 2, which can be significant for Boomerang or kind of Cookbook Botulus. I think that looking to kind of just slap something on an unresed ice and run and say what can you do, and with those 2 end the runs, you can kind of say, well, I'll end the run, or you take 2 net damage, which Jinteki is happier for you to do. But yeah, and I guess the other thing is that with trashing card from HQ, you can potentially kind of put things into archives for Regenesis scoring at a point where the runner, if they're running last click or running when they can't necessarily get into archives to check that. That's potentially where this card might be useful.
Yeah, I do see this card potentially going into these like bacterial reprogramming, like Jinteki decks. Just like, oh hey, we were running just 2 Tatu Bolas. Maybe we can run 1 or 2 Bodos and just more consistently get our cards into archives without having to completely overdraw. But yeah, I know it's interesting.
I've seen some Atea decks importing Bran, and this, if you squint at it, is kind of Bran at home. You have, if you're at the threat 4, it's 6 cost, 6 strength barrier, but also threat 4 is like so far away.
Yeah.
Like I think most of the time this isn't going to be threat 4.
I will say, like, that's again where maybe Regenesis is the most helpful, right? Because like Regenesis can be a single score to threat 4 sometimes. But yeah, no, I agree that threat 4 is, we've discussed, like, I think it's been like a player-based discovery, is so much harder to get to than threat 3, which feels like it happens like consistently by turn 4 or 5, and threat 4 can sometimes be like, oh, it happens on turn 8 and the game ends on turn 9 or 10, so it could be like this text may not be active for that long.
I think if I just from I've got kind of a bit of a Taya experience. And I think with also threat 4 and corp cards is maybe a bit easier to kind of build around, that you can build a deck with more 2-pointers in it. That makes that kind of getting to threat 4 kind of maybe a bit easier, but also a bit less dangerous if the runner's only kind of stealing the 4 points rather than stealing to 2-3 pointers to get to 6.
Also, the face check on this is noticeably worse than Bran, where you can just click it and bounce.
Yeah, that's true. The face check is significantly worse. Now, sometimes you might discover that the corp can't afford to trash any of their cards from HQ, and so it just becomes a 6 to res due to net and runner walks through. But I guess if you're resing this for 6, you probably are also willing to throw out a card from your hand.
Yeah, I wanted to echo like this Bran like comparison, right? And this is precisely because of what you're saying right now, is that both are these big barriers that you can't necessarily always rely on when you need them to. Like if you have this on HQ and the runner has either a Bolshevus or a Slap Vandal, and they just run break the first, what do you do as Corp, right? Like it's sort of the future perfect Psi in archives idea, right? Like how many times can you just pay the tax? So it's got some positional issues sometimes, probably, which makes it very, 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 very interesting, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's always like we all love our cards to have a little bit of extra decisions and mini games in them, and so I feel like Bodo is a huge success from that front alone, where it just is presenting interesting questions for both sides. Because as the runner, you're like, man, do I have to pay to not get ended the run sometimes here, or should I gamble on the corp not wanting to discard any of their cards from their hand? That's an interesting little mini game that you can play here. But Marbles, I'd also love to make sure that you get a chance to take a swing at this.
So I was just thinking that threat 4 is also if it's threat 4 for in terms of points that the runner's stolen, that's also when Fuji becomes kind of a blank agenda, because the runner can steal it and not take the net damage. And that's when you most want to turn this into a kind of really feed piece of the run ice, which it is. It is quite effectively. I think that creates a kind of interesting fork on the corp side, where you kind of switch from maybe a net damage, kill the runner strategy to, no, I'm actually going to try and score out now behind this big piece of ice that's suddenly become big and frightening because you've stolen enough agenda points to change the kind of game that I want to play.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout out. All right. Any final thoughts before we move on to the very last card of the daily cast spoiler season for Rebellion Without Rehearsal? All right. This is the Powers That Be, a unique one-cost asset Ritzy. Whenever you score an agenda, you may install one card from HQ or archives, ignoring all costs. This is 3 to trash and 1 influence. So this is quite the card. This is I'll pull it up on screen now. This is in many ways a very similar card to Team Sponsorship, which was a much beloved and much hated card, I think, from the San cycle, and it's coming back with a slightly different coat of paint. Actually, I guess almost the same coat of paint, but a little bit different. Who has some strong feelings they want to start with on this card? All right, I guess I'll call on someone. Ryan, I might start with you. What's your impression of the Powers That Be?
So, first off, I believe these are our 3 assassination targets to pair with our alternate runner win condition that we got. So, and I believe our person in the center here is the person who's getting assassinated on, oh man, I have to pronounce this name. Drayutinil?
Yeah, let me pull it up. I think you're right. Yeah, that does look like the same person in both.
Yeah, so from a lore perspective, I think this is cool that we get a neutral card on the runner side that is all three runners standing together in Ashen Brain.
Ashen Epilogue.
There we go, Ashen Epilogue, and then here we have the three assassination targets all standing together in the artwork here. Um, I'm also trying to figure out this ignoring all costs versus team sponsorships, ignoring install costs. Is there any universe where those two things are different?
I think unless we have a card that says install face up and pay a cost, which I don't think exists right now, I think this might just be a style update, and that is in fact what Jamie is saying in the chat.
Okay.
Um,
I will say, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of experience with the previous team sponsorship, so I'm
oh, that's all good.
glad to hand this off to somebody else.
Yeah, I think a lot of people left the game around when team sponsorships started getting good, and I'm not saying those are causal, but they're not unrelated at the same time. So, but yeah, Koga, I might throw to you for your initial impression on the powers that be.
So the first thing is, I'm gonna say is 0 out of 10. There is no advanced assembly lines. I cannot play Russian NEH anymore. That deck was a blast. But yeah, like this has a chance of like pushing Corpse deck building a bit, I think. Having some asset recursion is something we haven't seen in some time. So I'm just hyped. Just want to see what people come up with.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how much recursion, honestly, how much recursion we've seen on this final day. We have at least 3 different cards that deal with recursion in some major fashion. So definitely an interesting direction for the game to be heading. Dave, I might throw to you next.
Yeah, I really love this card. It tickles my jank synapses. I think there's lots of fun to be had with it. I was quite interested to hear that it was a reprint of a previous card. My first reaction when I saw this, not knowing team sponsorship, was it was a bit like Corella, but maybe a bit less pushed, and I think that's a good thing. But I think there are still really fun combos to be had in that area. Like my brain is buzzing with yesterday's Hollow Man and the Stoke the Embers agenda and the Kingmaker agenda, and like seeding the bin with several agendas and doing some crazy play where suddenly you go from 0 to 5 agenda points in a turn or something wild like that. I haven't quite worked it out yet, but I think it's out there and I'm really excited about it.
So something I realized, and this doesn't quite work. So it's like so you can make a server that's like, shoot. You can make a server with like a Rela in it, and then you can also have, I think you need San City Grid in there as well. So now basically every agenda comes in with sort of 2 advancement counters. Then you have a calibration testing, and a Vovo in the server, and the runner has made it to threat 4. You can just start windmilling out 3 advancement agendas, and keep reinstalling the calibration testing, resing it for 1, advancing, and you can like score a bunch all in one window.
That's really nice. I love it.
Yeah, that is a throwback to a really old Eternal combo where Team Sponsorship wasn't unique, and you had Baker Break Grid, which lowered by up to 5, so it was truly free. But yeah, sorry for cutting you off there, Koga.
Yeah, no. Bonus points. If you score Stoke the Embers, you can install the agenda with Arella first, and then put the advancement on the newly installed agenda.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, save yourself a whole set of triggers. That's wonderful.
And
Cool.
you can do the same with the powers that be. Because you can just, if you've got powers that be with Stoke the Embers, you can just install something and put the advancement counter on it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Just these 2 cards comboing together very well.
Yeah.
All right. Marbles, any thoughts on this card?
Being me, I'm trying to work out horrible Jinteki PE combos with it. And it definitely makes Blood in the Water a bit better. I think there's probably some combo in there with like Sting, installing Blood in the Water and getting you down to like the right number of cards, and you killing the runner in a single turn from like possibly 4 cards. But I'm trying to work out all the edge cases. I think this is a powerful card in a lot of decks, but there's one deck in particular I want to put it in because I'm me.
Yeah, no, putting this in net damage spike PE does seem quite good. And yeah, Ma in the chat calling out in op. This does seem potentially like an interesting card. Now, I don't know that op can protect the powers that be reliably, but maybe you start seeing a 2 surfer version of op, or you just see it in the asset version of ops, and they try and score kind of aggressively and recur their key pieces back onto the board.
Oh, there's another combo with that then. Malapert. Just realised
Oh,
if you
yeah.
score something fun at Malapert.
Yeah, search for an
Search it.
agenda and put it on the board for free. Ooh. Ooh, I like that. That's very nice. I think also, yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff you could do with that combo. Ooh, I had not been thinking about this as an op card for some reason. Don't know why. It's how I should look at every card, but failing on my contractual obligations here.
Obligations.
Oh, no. Oh, someone at the CO I was at yesterday said fully operational, and so I think that's going to have to be my first jank corp of the meta. But, well, maybe powers that be will go in a fully operational deck just to get all the pieces going together. But yeah, this is the powers that be. Any other? Oh, it looks like Dave, you have something you want to jump in with.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I mean, I'm a bit of a noob on this area, but am I right in thinking that there's a bit of color pie change over here? Like, this seems to be a near print or a reprint of an HB card, and I feel like back in the System Gateway era, this would definitely be an HB card, and they've moved away from this kind of thing to like hit the runner hard stuff. I don't have anything more to offer on this, but I'd be interested to hear from people who know a bit more about it, because I think that's a really interesting design choice. And yeah.
Yeah, I think there's this and Ashen Epilogue are both really interesting like cards. Like these were in a faction. They were identified with a type of with a faction as like this effect goes with a particular faction, and NSG's decided to take them in a different direction, like put them at neutral and put them at influence. If I had to guess, I maybe I'll try and see if I can get a designer to answer that on the record. One option that's probably the boring one is just a balance thing where like these cards not costing influence for some factions was like warping those factions. Now, I think you could say the exact same thing for Spin Doctor, where making this card mandatory kind of hurts every non-NBN faction. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of different reasons, and honestly, it could even just be that like these cards fit really well narratively. Like they make every runner in this set has a piece of this narrative, so having this narrative tie-in, and then similarly the powers that be, like they're not one faction. They are spread across Wayland, Epiphany, and the government. So maybe it doesn't make sense for this to actually be an HB card, right? Now, theme and mechanics and all that stuff, like there's a lot of interplay there, but yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see if we can get a designer to come on and chat with us about the how and the why. I personally would love to see more of those sort of discussions about this stuff post-mortem, probably a few months after the set's out, so that community can come up with an opinion. But
Nice.
All right. Well, I think that's gonna be a wrap for the RWNR daily casts. I want to thank all of my guests. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I want to give each of you a chance to say what you are most looking forward to trying first. Now that we've seen almost the entire set, Dave, I'll actually start with you. What are you most excited to play when we get our cards on JNet or in hand over the next couple of days?
I mean, so many things. I'm like a kid in a sweet shop. I think I'm probably most excited for building a Jinteki deck. I think the run of Jinteki cards we had in the middle of the week really excited me, and I think there's lots of fun options there. Many of the fun options involve killing people with a big snake, and I'm not ashamed of that.
Fantastic. All right, Dan, I'm going to go to you next. What are you most excited about to try first?
Yeah, I really want to try out some building a Sebastopol connections deck, and try it out in its intended form before maybe I see if I can take it into as. And I think that probably the first corp deck I'm gonna put together is looking back at Asmari Re-Education Neurospike, because I think things like the new MBN operation and the Hollow Man could boost that deck. Yeah, as a combo kill deck. So that's where I'm looking probably some Jinteki as well.
Very cool. Koga, you're up next.
Think I'm either gonna try some Yantuno deck or maybe just pushing Arisan a bit more with like Coalescence, Muse, all that stuff. Sounds like a plan.
Sounds great. All right, Marbles. I assume I have a guess as to your answer, but I'd still love to hear it from you.
My answer is actually the same as Koga's. I'd really like to play Jatingo deck. I think it's going to be really, really fun. And I haven't quite decided whether I'm going to do that first or the Ice Destruction deck first. But one of the two I'm going to try and play tomorrow.
Just do them together, right? Just spend 12 influence importing them into Anarch and say go.
You could do it with exploits and what else would you need? I'll work it out. I'll work it out later. Don't worry.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Ryan, I want to give you the final word on decks today.
So I mentioned that Turbine and Pinhole are not going to be in startup anymore. So I'm very interested to try out some assets and upgrades. I'm ready to play Hollow Man and fast advance some stuff and see what the runner tools to contest it look like.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you to all five of you. It's been wonderful having you on. This worked quite well. Thanks once again to chat for coming in night after night. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for Daily Casts. I'll see everyone on Friday unless I can find a window where Andre isn't streaming and the cards are up on JNet to do some jank nonsense. But in the meantime, thank you everyone for tuning in, and I will see y'all on the nets.